That time of night when the moon hangs low over the Texas sky and only the sound of crickets echoes through the fields. There lies a silent farmhouse no one dares to go near. The locals call it the Red Farmhouse, a place locked and abandoned for the last 30 years. I first heard about it from my grandmother. She told me that once a girl named Clara Red lived there, young, beautiful, and full of laughter. But one night, she went out into the fields and never came back. I always thought it was just one of those old country tales, until last year when I decided to see it for myself. I'm a freelance photographer, and my passion is capturing abandoned places. When I reached near Bowie County, the air felt unnaturally still, as if even the wind had stopped breathing. I had an old map in my hand with a brown smudge marking the spot. That was the Red Farm. The dirt road crunched under my tires, and slowly, the house appeared in the distance. A 2-story wooden structure, broken windows, and rusted hinges on the roof. The sun was setting as I turned off the engine. Inside, the air was heavy with the smell of rotting wood, mold, and time itself. The walls were lined with faded portraits, their faces erased as if time had swallowed them whole. In one frame, there was a girl, white dress, loose hair, standing before a field of corn. I thought, maybe this was Clara. I raised my camera to capture it, but just as I pressed the shutter, something moved in the glass of the frame. I turned around instantly, nothing. But when I looked at the camera screen, I froze. The same portrait, but now there was a hand resting on the girl's shoulder. I tried to shake it off, took a few more shots of the lower rooms, then stepped out through the back door. The wind had picked up across the fields, and the leaves rustled like whispers. A scarecrow stood a few yards away, but its clothes looked too new, as if someone had just dressed it. I walked closer. Red fabric, a white ribbon, and thick stitches running down the neck. My heartbeat quickened. Suddenly, the wind stopped. The scarecrow's fabric fluttered once, and for a split second I saw it. Something gleamed in its eyes like tears. Then a woman's voice behind me whispered, "Go back." I ran straight into the house. The door slammed shut behind me. Darkness swallowed the room. When I lit the lantern, I saw her reflection in the mirror. The same girl in the white dress, but her face was scarred and burned. Her lips moved. "You've awakened it." The next thing I remember, everything went black. When I woke up, I was lying outside on the ground. My camera was gone. Only a white ribbon remained in my pocket, wet with blood. I went back to the city, but every night since then, I hear the same voice in my dreams. "Take me back to the fields. I once tried to burn the ribbon, but the fire went out on its own." And even now, whenever I close my eyes, I see that figure wrapped in red cloth, not moving, but breathing. Story 2, the smell of rain, is strange. Sometimes a sign of life, sometimes a harbinger of death. In this part of Texas, rain meant only one thing: Hollow Creek Farm is waking. I had first read about the place in a local magazine. It said the farm had been abandoned for 20 years. No one lived there, yet during rainfall, the sound of footsteps could be heard from the attic. I laughed it off, but one day, driven by my love for photography, I went there myself. The road was long, desolate, and full of mud. By the time I reached the house, dusk was falling. A 2-story building, tin roof rusted, paint peeling off the walls. But the most terrifying thing was that the entire surrounding field had turned into a swamp. It was as if the ground itself was breathing. I pushed the door open and stepped inside, immediately surrounded by the smell of damp decay. Water stains climbed halfway up the walls. Mud streaks on the floor looked like someone had just passed through. I called out, "Is anyone here?" But the only reply was silence. The room contained old furniture covered in dust. Suddenly, an old rocking chair began to sway on its own, as if someone had just let go. I turned on my torch. The light fell on a wall. There hung an old calendar. The year, 1983. The date, the same day, the same month. My heart skipped a beat. The stairs leading up were broken, but I stepped carefully. Every plank creaked in protest. At the top, a long hallway stretched out, ending with an old rope dangling from the ceiling. That was the attic door. Outside, the rain poured heavily. Lightning flashed, and for a moment, I saw water flowing under the door, but it wasn't coming down. It was rising, as if something was pulling it upward. I stood frozen. Suddenly, the rope moved, all on its own. I tried to descend, but behind me came the sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, exactly following me. I turned. No one was there. But the temperature dropped sharply, and my breath formed mist. I looked down. Water had gathered around my feet. In that water, a reflection appeared. The face of a child, staring up from below. Empty eyes, as if it had been drowned for years. I ran, but the water flowed after me, sliding across the floor, seeping under doors alive. I reached outside, gasping, but the door slammed shut behind me. The next morning, when I returned, the entire house was dry, as if nothing had happened. But on the wall there was a mark, a small handprint in mud, like that of a child. A few days later, I spoke with a local elder named Eldon. He said, this place used to belong to the Cates family. They had 3 children. During a storm, 2 of them drowned. The father never found their bodies. They say he went up to the attic and hanged himself. In the morning, there wasn't a drop of water in the house, yet he had died of suffocation. He looked me in the eyes. When it rains, he comes out searching for his children. I never went back to that house. But whenever a storm hits, I look out my window, and there on the road, a shadow appears. Completely dry, holding a rope, as if trying to pull someone back up. Story 3 on the western edge of Texas lies in Old Town, Destray, where old stories blow around with the sandstorms. I had gone there for a documentary, filming old houses and their structures. But the house everyone whispered about was the breath house. They say the house breathes at night. No one knows how, but anyone who spent the night inside never comes out the next morning. I thought it was just a story until my producer said, if you shoot there, the video will go viral. I agreed. When I first arrived, it was evening. The air was still, but grains of sand were drifting. The house's paint had completely faded, as if the sun had burned it over years. Cracks ran through the walls, yet strangely, the door wasn't locked. A slight breeze made it sway like it was rising and falling, breathing. I turned on my camera. The microphone picked up a faint rumble, like someone inhaling from below. Inside, I felt a strange pressure. The air was heavy. Every room had tiny cracks in the floor, as if something beneath was moving. Handprints marked the walls, some large, some small, like many people had once been trapped here. From under the stairs came a voice, very soft. Leave. I froze. I swung the camera, but nothing was there. Yet the microphone again captured that same breathing. Upstairs, there was a bed with sheets still neatly arranged, as if someone had just risen. I sat in a chair to take notes. Suddenly, the atmosphere of the room changed. Air was being pulled, not into the room, but out, like the house itself was inhaling. The lights flickered. My camera shut off. I grabbed my phone, but the screen was only black mist. Story 3. Then came a scratching sound from the walls. I shone my torch and saw the wall moving, expanding like it was breathing. Each time it contracted, glossy damp marks appeared on the surface. I stepped back, but the floor trembled beneath me. It felt as if the ground below wasn't solid earth, but a living body. Then I heard it, the heartbeat, from inside the house, from the walls. Thump, thump, thump. I ran downstairs, but the door was shut, closed on its own. The air had stopped outside, yet inside the house, the breathing grew louder, angry. I touched the wall soft like flesh. Warm air escaped from a crack, and a whisper, "We're still here." I smashed a window with all my strength. The glass fell, but outside was only darkness, only dust. As I tried to leave, a hand clutched my ankle. I looked down. The floor had split open. Multiple hands reached out from within. Old, small, women's, men's. I screamed. They all withdrew, and the house exhaled one final breath, so powerful that I was thrown outside. The next morning, the police were there. They told me, "The house collapsed last night. You're lucky to be alive." I looked back. Only rubble remained. Yet, as I approached, a sound came from beneath the dirt, slow like someone was breathing. A month later, when I reviewed my footage, every shot was accurate, except one scene I had never filmed. The frame showed that same room. I was lying on the bed, asleep. and beside me, peering from the shadowed wall, was a face, eyes wide open, breathing through its nose. Story 4. On the eastern edge of Texas lies a small town, Elkhart. It looks peaceful on the surface, but there's a field there where the wind always seems to stop. The locals call it Whisper Field. In that field stands an old farmhouse, half sunken into the ground. It has a single window, small, round, broken, but whenever night falls, that window begins to speak. I first heard the story on a local radio show. The host said that ever since 1970, anyone who's gone near that window has heard whispers. Some said the voices were asking for help. Others said they were calling them inside. And some, who went in, never came back. I'm a journalist. I've always been obsessed with finding the truth behind such stories. So I decided to go to Whisper Farm myself and record what I could. By the time I got there, evening had fallen. The sky was a deep purple, and the air was thick with dust. The house stood still, like it was holding its breath, waiting. I turned on my recorder and approached the window. Inside, it was pitch dark, as if light had never entered. I called out, "Is anyone here?" In reply came a faint whisper, so soft I thought it was the wind. But the recorder caught it clearly, a woman's voice. "Last night, he came back." My hands began to shake. I asked again, "Who came back?" Silence. Then, on the inside of the fog glass, a finger mark appeared, as if someone was writing from within. I stepped closer and read the words, "Don't look." I backed away. The air went still. The ground seemed to stop. And then, behind me, came a soft, eerie laugh. I turned, no one there. But in my flashlight beam, my own shadow moved, as if something else was standing just beside me. I pointed the torch through the window. The room inside was empty, except for a rocking chair, gently moving. On the floor before it, old stains, blood, dried and dark. The walls were lined with picture frames, all turned upside down. I lifted one. A family. Father, mother, 2 children. But their faces had been scratched out, gouged away, like someone wanted them erased. Suddenly, the window fogged up again. This time, new words appeared from inside. "He's awake." I stumbled back as the entire house began to shake. Doors slammed shut on their own. The air pressure grew, so strong my ears rang. Behind the glass, a light flared, and a shadow appeared. Tall, broad, head bowed. Then came a voice, deep, broken male. "You saw him." The ground around me stirred, dust rising like breath. It felt as though the entire field was inhaling. I tried to run, but darkness swallowed everything. Only the whispers remained. Countless voices speaking at once. "We're inside. Don't go out." "He's out there." I froze. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. I turned one last time toward the window. My reflection was gone. In its place, a different face. Empty eyes, lips sewn shut. That face was behind me. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Everything went silent. Only one whisper lingered. "Now you're inside, too." By morning, they found me on a roadside, unconscious. The recorder was still in my hand. When the police played it, there was only one phrase captured: "He's out now." And now, whenever I go near a window at night, the glass fogs over. From the inside, a finger writes the same words every time: "Go back." He knows who you are. Story 5. In central Texas, where the boundaries between sand and grass blur, there's a place people call Trinity Farm. No one knows why it got that name, but even today, the soil smells of smoke. Locals say a large family, the Lanchsters, once lived there, searching the land for oil for the church. One night, a sudden blaze erupted from their farm, shooting flames into the sky, and then complete darkness. Since that night, no light has ever been seen there. I went there with only one goal: to prove it was all lies. I took my team with me. As the sun set and we arrived, an eerie silence hung over the farm. The air smelled of ash, as if something had just been burned. The entire property was blackened. In front of the house lay an old lantern called Last Light. Legend says that whenever the lantern lights on its own, someone dies that night. I laughed and said, "These are just stories." But when I opened the door, a cold wind brushed my face, as if whispering, Go back. Inside, everything was charred, except for one thing on the wall, a verse written in the dirt. The light shall reveal the damned. There were 4 of us on the team: Jason, Mila, Ken, and me. We set up the cameras. As I stepped into the main room, the lantern lit on its own. No sound, just a faint tick, like a spark striking. Mila shivered, whispering, "Someone lit it," but there was no one there. We began filming. When we turned off the lights to shoot in the lantern's glow, Mila said, "Did you hear that?" I asked what. She trembled violently. "Someone said my name." I replayed the recorder, and indeed, a deep male voice, whispering, "Mila." The ground seemed to vanish beneath our feet. As we tried to leave, the door locked itself. The handle was hot, like molten iron. Ken struggled, but nothing happened. Suddenly, the lantern dimmed, and silence engulfed the room. Only the sound of hearts beating. Then came knocking beyond the door. 2 knocks. 3 seconds of silence. Again, 3 knocks. Jason said, "I'll see who it is." As he opened the door, a gust of wind blew in, and the lantern went out. Complete darkness. Then a faint light, coming not from the lantern, but from above, as if someone was tracing letters in the air. We saw, "One must stay." My body froze. Suddenly, Ken screamed, "Something's behind me." We shone our torches, but no shadow was there, only claw marks on his neck. I tried to run outside, but as we reached the porch, the entire ground glowed red. In the middle of the fields stood the shadows of the Lanchester family. Light poured from their eyes like the lantern's flame. One stepped forward, old, yet burning. He said simply, "When the last light goes out, the soul remains." The next moment, everything vanished. I was alone, holding the lantern. The other 3, where they went, no one knows. The next morning, police found only me, unconscious, holding the same last light. The flame hadn't died, it glowed blue. When I woke up in the hospital, a nurse asked, "Where did you get that lantern?" I replied, "From Trinity Farm." She stepped back, pale. That farm burned to ashes 3 years ago, with Mila, Jason, and Ken inside. I tried to laugh, but whispers echoed in my ears. "You kept the light burning." I realized a faint warmth ran beneath my skin, as if a fire smoldered within me. A few nights later, as I sat by my window at home, the lantern lit itself again. Across the glass, in the direction of the fields, 3 blurry shadows stood. For a moment, they were silent. Then, all at once, they spoke. "Now it's your turn." The last light,